Hey, so I was thinking about the draft pretty recently, and thinking about who the Browns have picked, who has made those picks, and how good have those picks been versus how we felt about them when the Browns made them. So what I'm going to do is go through two drafts of John Dorsey, two drafts of Andrew Berry, and just see how all of those players have come out. How do I feel about those picks, X amount of years later, and so on and so forth. So let's just get into it by jumping in to 2018. Now, obviously, the elephant in the room, number one overall pick, Baker Mayfield. Now, is this a huge miss? You can make the argument, I guess. You can kind of make the argument that the jury's still out because he's still on the team right now. But also, I would make this argument. I don't think it's a huge miss. I think people are going to try to blow this out of proportion and make it a huge myth if Baker Mayfield doesn't end up working out here in Cleveland, which, admittedly, I do feel like that's what we're on the path on right now. But when it comes to drafting somebody in the first round or any round or whenever you draft somebody, yes, you're going to miss out on a better player. Unless you draft the absolute best player in the draft, you're going to take somebody who's not as good as the best player in that draft. So if we use that logic, everybody would be terrible at drafting. But that's not the logic we use, right? Fact is, with Baker Mayfield, was it the best pick you could have made? No. Was it the worst pick you could have made? Absolutely not. And I think that's where this pick kind of sits. It's okay. I don't mind this number one overall pick. I don't think it set the franchise back if this doesn't work out. If it works out with Baker, obviously, it didn't set the franchise back. But if this doesn't work out with Baker and he's gone after his fifth year or he's gone before his fifth year, I don't think it set the franchise back any. Because Baker, while he's not Lamar Jackson good, he's not Josh Allen good. He's also not what Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen were, which was so bad that it destroyed everything in the building. Baker, whether you like Baker or not, whether you think Baker should return or not, the one piece of credit I do always consistently have to give Baker is that he was able to take the bar from the floor to where most teams have their bar, right? Like now the Browns' bad seasons are what normal teams' bad seasons are. And I know some people might laugh when they hear that. That doesn't make sense to some people. But if you've been a Browns fan for any longer period of time than like 3 years, then yes, this makes a ton of sense because there was a time where we were begging for single-digit losses. There was a time where 6-10 didn't seem that bad. There was a time where, going 500, man, that was everything, let alone make the playoffs, win a playoff game, and everything else. Now Baker has gotten the franchise to the point to where if they go 500, it kind of sucks, right? And that is growth, whether you want to admit it or not. It's not like fantastic growth, but it certainly is growth, right? The perception of the Cleveland Browns is that 8-9 is a disappointing season. For so many years, if the Browns would have went 8-9, there would have been people like, oh man, look at those Browns charging up. You know what I mean? So yes, the bar has been elevated a little bit with Baker. Has it been elevated to the point that some of these other teams got? No, not absolutely not. Right? Like I think the bar in at least Buffalo has been risen much higher than the bar has been in Cleveland. And that's part of the issue that we have with Baker Mayfield currently is we're kind of debating, is he good enough to take us to that next step? Or is he, somebody who needs to be replaced in order to get to that next step? But either way, we took a step forward as a franchise here, right? So I don't think that pick is an absolute failure. I'm not going to be tough on John Dorsey on that. Even though I've been tough on Baker this offseason about a lot of the things he's done over these last 4 years, I can't say that he has been not a net. I can't say that he set the franchise back. So I'll leave it at that. Now, number 4 overall, Denzel Ward. That's an excellent pick. Austin Corbett. This was a bad pick, man. This was a bad pick because we gave up on it real early. He ended up being a starter, but it doesn't hurt. This miss really doesn't hurt because of two factors. One, Nick Chubb was drafted right after that. Obviously, fantastic pick, right? Nick Chubb in the second round right after him, 2 picks after him. Fantastic pick that you got there. Really made Austin Corbett easy to forget. Another thing here that made Austin Corbett easy to forget is that we just like finessed Wyatt Teller off of the Bills for like a 5th round pick too that year. So, once that happened, we just didn't care about Austin Corbett, who was a guard initially, right? So, really didn't miss that, right? Because we didn't have room for an extra guard if Wyatt Teller was going to turn into Wyatt Teller. So, not really a miss there when you look at how they made up for it in the long term. But if you just look at the pick itself, yeah, absolutely miss, but you made up for it with Nick Chubb. Chad Thomas in the 3rd round, miss. Antonio Callaway, miss. And Jannard Avery missed. Damian Ratley missed. Simeon Thomas. Overall, you can't say this 2018 draft was bad, right? When you get Nick Chubb, Denzel Ward, and, probably the 3rd best quarterback in that draft. Granted, you did it with the number 1 overall pick, but still the 3rd best quarterback in that draft. You can't be that upset with that haul, especially with Denzel Ward, especially with Nick Chubb, right? I mean, those are 2 of the best players in their position you got in this draft. So, can't really be mad at that. That's a pretty good draft. I know people are going to point to all the misses there, but in the draft, you're going to have misses. You're not going to hit every pick. But if you get 2 superstar players out of a draft, you did good. You did good. The next draft is 2019? We're going to look at the 2019 draft. Greedy Williams, this is John Dorsey's 2nd draft. Greedy Williams, I would say that's a solid pick. You got him in the 2nd round. The potential on him was like a early first round guy, but he slipped all the way to the 2nd round. And we can see why now when we see him play. He plays like a 2nd rounder. He's not bad, but he's not great. I think it's a solid pick with the 2nd round pick. Sione Takitaki, I think underrated good pick here. He's a really good run defender, strong linebacker, adds a lot of depth to your linebacking room. Not the most expensive guy in the world, so you might be able to keep him long term. I like the Sione Takitaki pick there. Sheldrick Redwine, that didn't work out. Mac Wilson on the verge of looking like it didn't work out. Austin Seibert, boy, did that not work out. 5th round pick for a kicker. Let's hope we never do that again. Drew Forbes, 6th round pick, didn't work out. Donnie Lewis, I don't even remember him being on the team. So, yeah, in that draft, you got 2 okay players. You didn't have a 1st round pick that year, so you did okay. It's not the worst draft in the world. The Browns have definitely had worse drafts, but they have also had much better drafts than this. This is probably I would say like a C- draft here. So those are John Dorsey's 2 drafts. Now let's look at Andrew Berry's output here, and we're going to jump to 2020. All right, 10th overall pick, Jedrick Wills. I would say that looks like it's on the verge of working out. I know he's had up and down parts of the year when he was injured, but he came back from that injury pretty strong at the end of the season. I thought he played pretty well. I know there's a hive of people who just don't like Jedrick Wills for whatever reason. I don't understand it. Jedrick was the least of the Browns' problems on the offensive lines when he was healthy. When he was healthy, he was cool. The problem was that we had holes on the other side of the line because of injury. So I think Jedrick's going to be fine. He's going to come into his 3rd year. I think he's going to have a really great year next year. If he does, the pick's really going to work out. Next pick, Grant Delpit. Kind of a wait and see here because, yeah, this is 2 years later, but also he popped his Achilles in his rookie year, so we don't really get to know much about, this is really just his rookie year. So I would say this is on the verge of looking good, but again, it's 1 year, so we don't really know that much. But I would say that's probably going to end up being a solid pick. Jordan Elliott. Yeah, man, that one's not working out. I didn't like it when it happened. It doesn't look like it's working out throughout the 2 years he's been here. Hopefully he has a strong 3rd year because we need somebody to step up in that defensive line room. But these 2 years just haven't been impressive at all. Jacob Phillips, I think that one might work out pretty well. He's looked really good late in the season in his 2nd year. We'll see what happens with him. Again, it's kind of another wait and see guy. He didn't get a lot of starting snaps because he wasn't a starter early in his career, but he did get some starting snaps late into this year. I liked what he put out there. I'm going to wait and see on Jacob Phillips, but arrows pointed up on him. Harrison Bryant, boy, I was high on this pick when they made it. I love this pick, the training camp he had. And then ever since the end of that training camp, this arrow has been dipping and dipping and dipping and dipping and dipping. You know what I mean? He's not even anybody. Like, we're disappointed with the tight end output. We don't even talk about Harrison Bryant anymore. That's not good. He's had the dropsies. He had the fumble problems in his rookie year. It's just been a disappointing 2 years with Harrison because he showed so much promise in his rookie camp, in his training camp, and it just hasn't showed up since then. I'm on wait and see with him, but that arrow's pointing down at this point, unfortunately. Hopefully, we'll know if David Njoku's going to come back, so maybe he gets more snaps next year, and that really blossoms him into a top-tier tight end. People were saying the George Kittle quotes, right? People were comparing him to George Kittle coming out of Florida Atlantic here, so that would be nice if we could get it, but it ain't looking like that right now. The next pick was Nick Harris. My bad, not Chris Harris, Nick Harris. This pick looked really bad in 2020 because Nick Harris had to play his rookie year. He got murdered. He got bullied around, pushed around. The Jets really, really abused him. And then this year, Nick Harris had to step in at center, and I'm just gonna say, looked really good when he's playing his natural position. Now, he also looked bad earlier in the year. It looked like he really put something together late in the year. The arrow was pointing down. I would say the arrow's neutral with Nick Harris. We'll see. 5th round pick, though. 5th round pick. You know what I mean? It's some of these 5th round picks I've said from earlier, we didn't even know if they made the roster or not. 6th round pick here, Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's another one kind of like a Harrison Bryant where the arrow was really pointing up in the training camp period. And then it went down and it dipped up a little bit and it's just been, you know what I mean? I think our expectations and hopes for Donovan Peoples-Jones might have gotten a little high during training camp. Some of us, myself included, thought he would be like a number 1 type of receiver by the end of this season. I think we're finding out that he is a number 2 receiver, a Z receiver, but probably at his best as a 3rd receiving option. Because if you give him more targets, if you give him the ball more, he might make more plays, yes, but he might do something very bad with the football. He's been an atrocious punt returner, and he's been questionable with the football, which concerns me about him. But other than that, I still do think there's a NFL wide receiver in there. I think there is a starting NFL wide receiver in there, and I think he showed that. 6th round pick, though, man. You're just taking flyers in the 6th round at that point. And, just looking at this 2020 draft, I would say you got 2 players where the arrow is definitely pointing up. You got Jordan Elliott's probably down, and then Harrison Bryant's pointing down. But everybody else in that draft still looks like they could find a way to contribute 2 years in. That's a pretty good draft. I think that's going to shake out pretty well for this team here. All right, so 2021, again, man, super early. We're just kind of doing a rookie review at this point. Greg Newsome, starter, really good. Great pick off the bat. Greg Newsome, I think he's going to be a starting corner for a long, long time in this league. Really like him. Y'all know how I feel about JOK. Y'all know I love that man. Y'all know he is my favorite player of this draft class. I think he's going to be an excellent player. I think he's already showed that he could be an excellent player. I am over the moon with what I got with JOK. So yeah, no JOK slander will be happening on this YouTube page at this moment. Round 3, Anthony Schwartz needs a better year too. I think he was put out there far too often, far too early. I think the plan was he was never supposed to be out there as much as he was, even though, Odell would miss game 1. They really did lean on him a lot in that situation. I don't know, man. It wasn't a great year 1. He had some drop issues. He doesn't run great routes. He's a rookie. He's a developmental project. I hope he shows a lot of development next year. And if he does, he has a lot of tools, right? 6'2", 4'2" speed. You know what I mean? He can be a great wide receiver. It's just right now the skill set, it's just not there. James Hudson was pretty good at the end of the season. You know what I mean? I think Jake Burns has really pointed that out to me and then pointed it out in film study. James Hudson pretty good at the end of the season. Had a rough start of the year and definitely had a rough game versus TJ Watt. Those things happen to rookies. I'm not really too pressed about it, but he looked really solid at the end of the year. And again, you know how I am with tackles. I think it takes them 3 years to really get their body ready for playing offensive tackle in the NFL or offensive guard in the NFL. So the fact that he has showed great signs in year one, I'm happy with. So arrow pointing up there. If I didn't say with Anthony Schwartz, arrow neutral. I'll go neutral on him. Tommy Togiai, arrow neutral. Haven't really seen much out of him. Same thing with Richard LeCounte. Same thing with Tony Fields. Demetric Felton, who, again, another 6th-round pick. There's some potential there. Again, he's like Anthony Schwartz. I just felt like they leaned on him a little bit too much when they had other playmakers, and I think that's where the frustration came with him. I think he's going to be a good player. He needs to develop. I think in year 3 he might be ready for a bigger role, maybe year 2, but he's a couple of years away, same as Anthony Schwartz. So arrow neutral there. Obviously, the arrow is going to be more neutral for guys that were drafted earlier just because they're still on the team and they're still like in their first or second year. So Andrew Berry's drafts do have that advantage. But if you look at the drafts that Andrew Berry has had with the drafts that John Dorsey has had, I think we have had 4 years, quite honestly, of pretty decent drafts. I don't think we've had a bad draft in 4 years. I think we've gotten starters or starting level players out of each and every single draft. We can't say that for every Browns draft. So I think we've been fortunate in that way. And I think, if you just look at that 2020 draft and the first 2 rounds where you got extensive looks at like a JOK and a Greg Newsome this year, from what Andrew Berry and his staff has done, very impressive stuff. I mean, that 2020 draft is really impressive. And those first 2 picks in 2021, 2 starters right off the bat, like that's impressive. I believe in 2020, he got 2 starters right off the bat, right? First round, second round with Jedrick Wills and then Grant Delpit. So Andrew Berry, man, he's proved that he could draft well. I'm excited to see what he's going to do with the 13th pick this year. If the odds are what the odds are with Andrew Berry, he's probably going to find a starter here. But I'll get into my grades for Andrew Berry in 2021 next week. I'm going to grade everything on the Cleveland Browns next week. It will be report card week or something like that next week. But that's just my thoughts on these last 4 years of drafts for the Cleveland Browns. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Does seeing how well the Browns have drafted over the last 4 years fill you with confidence in their ability to restack this roster as time goes on? Let me know in the comment section down below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.